Hey D&D fam, I'm Quick.
And I'm Lee, and you're listening to
Divas and Ducats. So what is a diva? I think divas get a bad rep, but to me, diva is all about the attitude.
As for ducats, it's your finances, your assets, Skrilla, guap, your coin. We're talking all things with the potential to affect your pockets.
And while we're attorneys by trade, we are divas by choice. Divas and Ducats is for edutainment purposes.
Y'all, we are not Series 511 or 703 professionals. This does not create a financial advisor or attorney-client relationship. The views expressed here are solely our opinions and the opinions of our guests.
It's just our opinion, y'all. Okay, divas, let's talk Ducats.
Okay, hello D&D fam, welcome back. We're excited to have you. As usual, we have an interesting topic on our Diva docket. We are talking about kids because either way, they're expensive. Whether you have one,
expensive.
5, they cost.
Ooh, 5.
Some people have 5. So before that, make sure if you're watching, you click the bell and subscribe to our channel so you are up to date with anything we come up with. And if you prefer to listen, either way, go to our site, www.divasandducats.com. Make sure you also sign up. We have a little letter that comes out, a little tickler whenever we're doing something. So just making sure you stay up to date. All right. And we have a sponsor. Boop, boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop. So this episode is sponsored by Hunter's Affordable Bail Bonding. They have been serving Charlotte and the surrounding areas for over 20 years. They have 4 offices in Mecklenburg, Union, Laurinburg, and Robinson counties. That's here in North Carolina. They are licensed, though, to handle every county in the state of North Carolina. So if you know someone who needs, a little assistance getting out, had a little too much fun over the weekend, got sent to the pokey, then hit them up. No bail is too big or small. Their number is 704-377-3733. Again, that is 704-377-3733. And their office in Charlotte is located downtown at 428 East 4th Street, Suite 400.
And we will have that information in the show notes. So if you are driving, you do not have to try to remember it.
Amen. Don't do that. All right. So let's get into it.
Yes, let's talk about it. So kids are expensive. I think this is it's an ideal topic for Divas and Ducats, right? Because they are child care and elder care, the two biggest expenses that you can have in your lifetime. 0 to 17 is for most. Some people, love their children and they go through 25, but those obligatory years, 0 to 18, that's a long time, and it costs. I think in 2021 they said the average cost of a middle income 2-parent household to raise one child was $233,000. And then for a lower income, it wasn't much further off. It was like $172,000.
So whatever your income bracket, it's a struggle.
Right.
Like. Okay.
Right. It's very, very expensive. Yeah.
Okay.
So
what is driving that? Is it because obviously they're in daycare until they go to school, but what is it? Is this feeding them?
Well, definitely the cost of, food is ridiculous. Obviously now if you're going into a grocery store, I saw the funniest TikTok the other day. This guy I think he was in Publix or something. And at first it started off at like $45. And the guy might have rung up 1 or 2 things and it would shoot up to like $200. He was like, stop, hold on. I didn't come here for all this. I didn't think about it.
Every time I go to the teeter, I just be looking like, the teeter is kind of like Target. You start to look like, what did I buy?
Right. And that's the thing. Like, you feel like, what did you buy? You definitely don't come out with a stack of meat. Like, you used to get for $200-$300. I'm military raised, so we went to a commissary. Man, you could have 2 buggies.
You did.
Now you're going to have a basket. Right? So, I mean, if you think about that's just you.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to feed 4 and 5 kids, and the minimum wage is not going up. It is definitely not sustainable for what the cost of living is. It's for yourself, and then much less to raise a child.
Yeah.
So, I think food is definitely a large part of it. Clothes can be. I think for girls, it's easier to dress them younger. We can go to the Sheins and the Amazons and all that stuff. It's harder to dress boys because, when they get to around, I don't know, 13, probably 12, 13. My son doesn't necessarily care about name brands right now, but he is paying attention to he's starting to pay attention to his shoes, what kind of shoes he has on it. You can't get him the Skechers anymore and, certain things. So I think clothing for a boy can be very expensive during that during those years.
Yeah.
For a girl, it becomes makeup and hair. But I think nowadays, when you think about like kids that go to college and they're going into college and they're getting these scholarships, like the kids nowadays do a whole lot of different stuff.
They're involved.
Than what we did. We came out, having an A was enough. Having an A and a B was enough to get into scholarships. But now these kids have community service. They've been running in AAU. Kids did it back then, but not as prevalent as it is now. Now, 5 years old, they're in 3 and 4 sports. My son is in jiu-jitsu. He's in track. He said he don't want to do track next year, but we're going straight into baseball. We're trying to figure out those sports, you know what I'm saying? So those uniforms, traveling, like it's not the way it would. Like you don't usually get into sports or whatever you desire in your passion in middle school and high school anymore.
Yeah.
So, those are huge expenses when you start talking about registration and uniforms. And like I said, most of these AAU teams travel. I mean, right now his track team is in Florida and easily $1,500 to $2,000 just to get down there. That's not what you get right. That's getting down there in registration. That's it. So, and then, for some parents, especially like I'll talk about a 2-income, a married couple family, because usually those kids are not going away to a different parent for summer, right?
Yeah.
So in those you have summer camps. Now my son is also in summer camp, but those summer camps are not cheap. They're just almost as expensive as daycare, if not more so. They could range from $170. I haven't seen too many cheaper than $100.
$100 a week?
A week.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So they're like $170. I just paid $18 for 3 weeks for Mason.
Is that like due up front, or am I paying every week?
You can't. So his registration for his particular camp can be done every week.
Oh, okay.
But you get it. They always give you a discount for doing it
up front.
In advance. But they have camps that range. I had a friend recently send me a camp that was through the YMCA that dealt with selling and all of these, it's elaborate. Yeah. That camp was $5,000.
Oh, no.
It was overnight. It was 4 weeks. But, like these are costs. And I guess that's kind of maybe some of the difference between a middle income and a lower income. Because the lower income ain't thinking about no selling.
I'm not going to do that.
Right. But, those camps are out there and they could be very, very expensive. So just because daycare ends, and I think a lot of, especially, we'll get into this later, but when you think about child support and guardianship and, legal custodians versus non-legal custodians, a lot of people do feel like, well, they're no longer in daycare, the expenses are gone.
Got you.
And that's definitely not, I think the expenses just transfer into other things.
Not saying whether it's wrong, right, or in between, I think some of that thought process is because they feel like it's optional. I think those who feel that way, it's like, okay, well, I have to have you somewhere. I can't just, like, we have dogs. I can leave my dog literally in the laundry room and have someone check on her here and there as much as I want to. Nobody's going to call the police.
Right.
But you can't leave a child in the laundry room all day. So it's like, daycare, I have to have you somewhere.
It's an obligation.
Whereas they feel like, well,
they don't have to be in track.
Yeah. So I think some of it, like I said, whether you
that's
agree or not,
understandable.
it's like, kind of like they view it as like, I guess the version of like when you want to get something done medically, it's like, oh, well, that's cosmetic. So
I can understand that thought process for sure.
So, and thinking about all that, because this is the first, so I'm a millennial, and you know, we get a lot of crap. It's fine. But this is the first the millennials, and I guess certainly Gen Z. I'm not sure fully their statistics, but we are the first generation who, statistically, the way things have trended with like the economic downfalls, everything like that, that are doing worse than the generation before us. Because usually, that's the whole point, right? Is like you get out there, you work, and you try to make it a little easier for your children. Give your children the leg up to go further than you went, whatever that looks like, right? So for some people, that might be like, I didn't go to college, my kid goes to college. For some people, you know, it varies. It's certainly subjective depending on, you know, who your parents were. But yeah, millennials, because if you think about it, I was somewhere in college with the whole 08 crisis. So you come out, there aren't jobs like that. Then you go through, you know, that whole situation. It really wasn't improving even if you go to grad school. You get, you know, maybe 2-3 more years you're not working, but it was still kind of slow if you're thinking like early 2010s. Then you have on top of that student loan debt, which is affecting your ability to get a house. I think they're doing certain things now where they've worked with it, but there were a lot of situations where folks who went to school and accrued student loan debts were not eligible because of their right. So that's why some of those things are, you know, cycling now, where they're like, yeah, this generation is not doing as well as the boomers or probably if you're millennial, you're probably a boomer, maybe a Gen X was your parent. So it's like, that's the thing. And so in saying all that, there are many millennials who are choosing for various reasons not to have children. One of them being like, they're expensive and I ain't got it.
Right.
So let's kind of shift to, especially as women, I don't know that there's as much stigma with men who don't have children. Maybe by a certain age, maybe. But I think my experience, I've heard more of a stigma when a woman either doesn't have children or says she doesn't want children. So let's kind of venture into that. It feels like there's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with children and women. So there was this recent, like you said, TikTok, and the girl was just like doing makeup or whatever. It was one of those audio, and she's like, you know, work like you don't have kids, but don't abandon your child. Like all of these things that just opposed each other. It was like, you know, don't be too emotional at work, but don't act like a man if you want people to like you. It was just that constant, like, it doesn't make sense kind of thing, expectation. And so
the juggle.
Yes. Yeah. And so one of the things that I think as women, especially once I'd say it maybe starts around late 20s. Probably late 20s. So you're told, you know, when you're in your 20s, you're a teen, you're in college, like, oh, take your time, have fun. All of that, right? As you get into your late 20s, they kind of start to eye you a little bit, like, what's going on?
Had too much fun there.
Are you, you know, you thinking about, you get in your 30s, you ain't had no baby. It starts to be like, are you thinking about your legacy? I mean, are you really just going to give that up? It starts to be a thing where if you don't want a child or haven't had a child as a woman of a certain age, it's selfish suddenly, right? Or it's you're not fulfilling your duty,
right?
If you don't have children,
or you truly can't be happy.
That, or you're incomplete, and it's just like. One of the things, first off, I want to pause and say, because I've had just several friends and family members, you don't know, unless a woman just voices it, you don't know what her situation is if she does not have children. So it could be a situation where she wanted children and maybe she's had miscarriages. Maybe, you know, she's been unable to conceive, like not even to the point of getting pregnant. You don't really know what's going on with that woman to know why she doesn't have kids. So first, I just think it's rude from that standpoint, period.
And with that, I think more so of the rudeness to me tends to come from family, right? Because of the familiarity that they have with you. Like they still feel like they can say things. I think from what I've seen, generally in public, like strangers, friends, I feel like people are starting to become more sensitive to that as more women speak up about infertility and, you know, issues with trying to conceive.
Yeah.
But with family, it's still like, you just don't want, like, something wrong with you. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. And I think that's the thing. But I think on the opposite side, the women who, you know, let's say the woman is like more of a career woman and is really doing well in whatever it is that she does, she becomes selfish when she doesn't kind of drop what she's doing or step back in what she's doing if she has kids. The woman who says like, well, I got a nanny and this is how we're going to do it, then it becomes a selfishness from that standpoint. But then you got the stay-at-home mama. If she stays at home and takes care of her kids and maybe, you know, maybe husband salary holds it down, whatever the situation is, then she's lazy. So it's just like,
right.
do what
All
you gonna do,
is sit
sis.
at home.
Because right. I mean, what you doing? That ain't no job.
Right.
I mean, why you too tired to cook? You ain't doing nothing but taking care of the kid. I'm gonna tell you, there was a situation. It's funny now. I had my niece's little friend, they're 5. And the little friend's baby sister, I had basically 3 kids and it was just me. It was 3 hours. And I was like, exhausted. I'm having to make sure they stay where they're supposed to stay. I had a meeting. The baby won't let me do nothing unless I'm holding her. I was like, oh, this, oof. And that was a primer. Again, that was babysitting. And I was like, yeah, this 3 kids life ain't for me.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I wish more, first of all, claps to the stay-at-home fathers. But I wish more of them would speak up, because I think if a man hears that from a man, when we say it's just complaining, right? We should just be able to bear it. But I think if a man spoke up to it that has actually experienced the sheer exhaustion that you would get from staying home and raising kids and trying to be all things and cleaning up 3, 4, 5 times a day for you to come home from that job to a clean home.
And not getting adult time.
Yeah.
If you think about it, you're interacting at certain points with adults or whatever. Yeah. And that person
is with Blue's
with
Clues
kids all day. And then they might want to have some adult time, some wine or whatever, and you tired from working.
Right.
And looking like, I mean, you ain't got no hobby.
Right.
So, and I think that when you say that, it points it out, like in terms of the women are expected to bear it, like that just goes into, it just reinforces the patriarchy. But so I don't know, to that I say like, do your thing, because like I've even been told, just personal experience, like I'm mid-30s. So I just, for me, not knocking whoever wants to do more or whatever. For me, I know that I want to live a certain lifestyle. I love to travel. I don't want to have to stop doing that. And like, no shade, I don't want to just take kids trips. Like, I don't want to just be like, I don't. I mean, it's great, but I'm like, I want my stamp, and I didn't have to like break out the goldfish and juices. I don't want to do that all the time. So when I factor that in, and I factor in my age, I'm at the point of maybe I still lean child, but I lean child singular. Like that's where I'm at. Right. And I have even been told, like you said, family, people familiar with you, like, oh no, that's selfish. You should have 2. They need a playmate. They need someone to go through life with. And when you're gone, someone's been in the same house. And I'm like, I feel like you just need to, I mean, not that they're dogs, but you just need to socialize your child, not to be a mess just because they're an only child. And I think they'll be fine. Like there's cousins, there's friends.
Right.
So it's like, even that, like people will try to, I think, dictate what you should be doing based on either what they want for you or what like they've done. Like I don't want to say it like as a like, I don't know, people see me just being free and having fine Auntie Summer and like, oh, let me reel that in. I don't think it's that necessarily, but it's just like some people have a vision for you that isn't your vision, right? And I'd be like, well, listen, it should be easier when I ask you to watch my one child. It should be no problem.
Right.
So.
And then also to that, I mean, talking ducats, like people always want to be in your ovaries, telling you to have kids, and like you said, you have one, and then that's not enough. When's the next one? That child ain't even 6 months yet.
Like, it's always what's next.
Right, what's next? And who forking over the daycare?
That part, because these daycare, like the decent ones, whatever that looks like for you, you paying at least $1,000 a month.
At least.
And so, and when you have two, they give you a little discount, but then you still paying your mortgage. Right. You're paying $1,600, unless you're lucky enough to maybe have like the first couple years grandma somebody. But child, these new grandmas, they ain't even called grandma. That part,
that's what I was about to say. And none of them stopping to come live with you no more to raise the kids.
Nana, grandma, Dee, all of these names that's not grandma, they are not stopping their life to watch the babies every day. They're not doing it. No. You gonna get your day with grandma. And that's fine, but it's just, again, things have changed. It's not like you can say, okay, well, until my baby's 3, you're going to stay with grandma, and then I'm going to put you in daycare so you can get, like, the ABCs and all the things, all the benefits of, like, learning with kids or whatever.
They living their best life.
So I just, to that I say, like, really, ladies, those able to, reproduce in whatever capacity, do what you want to do, because somebody's going to have something to say either way.
Right. And that's also said, that's a good segue into reproduction, because that is also a factor.
Girl. So
hella expensive.
Here's the thing. Especially, I know a while ago we did the episodes on like job hunting and resignation flex. One of the things that I will say, if you are looking into different companies, study their benefits, because some of these companies pay for fertility treatments and different procedures, and some of them do, but there's several caveats. So really be sure you understand it, because like the average cost of egg freezing right now, which is essentially the doctors make you produce a bunch of eggs, and then they trigger your body to ovulate, and then they go in and take as many eggs as they can and freeze them until you're ready to have children. That costs average $8,000 to $15,000. So
just that process, not even
just the process. You still have to pay another. So usually to unfreeze them and go through the process of them like implanting and fertilizing the egg, because that's they freeze eggs and embryos. So like just the what do they call it? Oocyte is an unfertilized egg. But the embryo is fertilized. So it just depends on where you are. If you have a partner that you like, I want to have babies with them, then that's, skip a step. But if you freeze eggs, they're going to have to take the sperm, fertilize the egg, and then implant you. And that's still another $6,000 to $10,000. So if you actually, need to use them. Now, storage isn't that bad. Like storage is average like $100 to $200 a month. So comparatively, the storage is cheaper than the other stuff. But
it's $26,000, and for those that keeping count.
Yeah, so you're paying about $1,000, $1,200 a year to store the eggs. And many of them have clauses where they'll only store them to a certain age. So once you're like 45 for some, they won't implant, just because I guess the risk and all of that. So like that's some of it too to really think about. The average cost of in vitro, which is basically the situation I just talked about, where they are fertilizing your egg outside of your body and then putting the egg, the fertilized egg in. That could be between $12,000 to $20,000. Medication, of course, drives it up towards that $25,000. IUIs, which is similar to in vitro, but my understanding of it is they basically, not to be crude, but picture like the turkey baster situation. Like they basically put the semen up there. So instead of it happening in like a petri dish, it happens like
inside.
That is about $1,000 per round right now. So if it's not successful, like each round counts them. $1,000 per round. So
y'all please check out insurance.
It is really expensive, and they suggest for like egg freezing, you do it by around mid to late 30s to have your best like viability chances in terms of they test them for genetic abnormalities. So all of that, they suggest you do it in your 30s if you're gonna do it.
And so I didn't know, that's new to me. I did not know that they still have the age barrier or restriction, I guess, on implanting the embryo or implanting the trying to get you pregnant basically at 45. I thought that was kind of the whole point of freezing your eggs.
So yeah, so I will say now it's just from the clinic I went through. I'm not sure like if that's just the industry standard or what, but I will say
it makes sense. The risks are still there for birth.
Yeah.
So
so when I went through the process, I basically had to sign up over some papers where I had to determine basically like if you pass, do you want the decision of what happens to your eggs to be left to a partner or someone? If so, who? Or do you want the egg? Do you want them destroyed? Or I had to make the decision of after a certain amount of time, I think it was like that 45 age, do I want to donate to science or do I want to do this? So like you literally had to decide in different scenarios, what do you want to happen to your eggs?
Wow.
And then within that, it did say like 45 was the limit of if you're going to implant these eggs, you got to do this by 45. And then I think they'll store them, but then at another age, I can't remember the benchmark, but after that, they just like either destroy them or study them or whatever. Like you're not able to use them. Now, I think some of that is certainly dealing with the risk of involved in like getting pregnant at that age and all of that. But I think also some of it is like viability. They say, I don't remember the percentage now, embryos statistically unthaw better at a more successful rate than eggs. For whatever reason, like the unfertilized eggs. One of the things that helped me, so in my process, so let me take you back. I decided around 33 to get mine done just because I was at that phase where I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, but I don't want to have issues conceiving if I do. Talked a lot about on the show about my, PCOS and not sure if that's going to be a hindrance. So like, let me just do this and like secure that. So they literally, have a consultation with you. They explain the whole process, and they do an ultrasound to kind of see where you are. And they determine, like, I guess, based on where you are in the menstrual cycle, the whole every 28 days,
right.
They start you on medication. So at first, you actually have to go through some kind of lender, unless you just have the funds for who's going to finance the medicine. The medication cost about $10,000. Insurance, depending on your circumstance, will cover up to $25,000 in medication. So, but
through the whole process, or for just the beginning of this process?
For your lifetime. So whatever you're doing, the insurance will cover up to $25,000.
Okay.
So, what they have you do is they teach you you spend one of your appointments, they teach you how to inject yourself. So, and the actual process, at least of the egg freezing, was really only like 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
But it's an intense 2 to 3 weeks. So, the first basically 10 days, you're injecting yourself with 2 medications, and both of them basically stimulate your body to produce more eggs, because usually in a menstrual cycle, you produce 1 egg and you ovulate, and if nothing happens, you lose your egg half period. So it's wanting you to make more, because it's like, I want to freeze these eggs. We're not going to go through this every month for
Right.
So every 2 or 3 days, though, within that 2-week process, you're going back to the doctor. They're going in with that ultrasound to look at what your ovaries are doing. And they literally look like black holes. You could just see your ovaries starting to fill up. And it's uncomfortable because you start to feel, I don't know if this is what pregnancy feels like, but you start to feel kind of bloated. Like you start to feel like you're like you carrying something. You start to feel a little heavy over the process, plus, hormones. So you're doing that. Like I said, you're going to the doctor every 2 to 3 days for like 10 to 12 days. When they are satisfied, because within the ultrasound, they're looking at your eggs. They're also looking at the size of the eggs. Like they're taking all kind of little measurements. And so they kind of tell you how to adjust the medicine, because medicines have the different like milligrams on there. You can literally turn it like a little pin and like stick yourself. So again, if you're a little squeamish, you might have to have someone do it for you. I was a G, so I was just doing it, getting it done. So around day 12, they look at you and they give you what's called a trigger shot. So it triggers your body to ovulate. So the whole time they're stimulating you, but they're making sure you don't ovulate because that's when they're going to go retrieve them.
Okay.
So the trigger shot was like HCG, I believe. And they do that within like 36 hours of them actually going in and doing the retrieval. The retrieval was very, I won't say low maintenance, but it was just very like chill process. You go into the clinic, they give you medication, they do put you to sleep. The procedure is like maybe 30 minutes and they retrieve your eggs and then they tell you how many they retrieved, and maybe a day later they tell you how many they actually froze because they do the genetic testing on the eggs to make sure they're viable before they freeze them because
that makes sense.
So, and an important thing, I don't know what's going to change with that whole like Roe v. Wade. I don't know if that's going to change with them being able to discard the non-viable eggs. But so the benefit, because usually it's not a benefit, the one benefit of me having PCOS is because I don't ovulate regularly, I was able to produce more eggs than most women in my age range.
Okay.
So in my process, all that stimulation, they retrieved 49 eggs and they froze 37. So
that's good.
Theoretically, I have like 37 little options.
You got 37 babies.
37 of them. Now,
that's really good.
Unthaw wise, I think they said like 60% of them survived that. So
what's the
I might really have more like closer to 20.
Okay.
If and when I choose to do that. The bad about my experience, I will say, I had called. Make sure if you're going to do this, call your insurance company, take down the employee's number, take down their employee ID number if they have something like that, and really understand fully what is covered. Because I was actually told I had her name and everything, because I'm usually really good about what's your name. And I was told, yeah, it covers it. I was told the limits and everything. So I'm like, cool, let me reach my deductible and then y'all taking care of the rest. I got a letter because apparently my company had changed some things. I got a letter that cryopreservation, as it's called, which is egg freezing, was not covered for me unless I had a diagnosis of being infertile or I was freezing embryos due to having like a cancer that would affect my reproductive abilities.
That's limiting.
Right. So again, we've been going back and forth to this day because if you put in a document that this is covered, you need to be very thorough. You need to bold it for me because not saying that I would not have done it, but I would have certainly maybe stocked up the HSA more or,
been
studied
able to prepare
some other,
differently.
Caveat. Yeah. So I think really, 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 if you're thinking about it, make sure you talk that through and understand if there's any limitations because they will hit you with that $8,000 bill that, we didn't cover this. So that's one thing. If I could do it over again, like I thought I had crossed my T's and dotted my I's, but apparently if your employer changes something within that, I guess, benefit year, you could be SOL. So just something to think about.
And then another way to use insurance for the benefits first. I know you mentioned, like you said, you would stock up on your HSA. So if you do have children and you have those options at your job, please use them. I think for currently at my job, we can use it up to 13 years old for the FSA, which is your flexible spending account. So basically what it is pre-tax dollars that go into an account, and you can usually use them for summer camps, daycare, anything that's related to having to take care of that child. Most of the time it's so you can go to work. Really, that's what it is. So it's not, it's not your personal tutoring. My son takes Spanish lessons. I can't write that off because that has nothing to do with me trying to go to work. But summer camp, like how does he have to get taken care of so I can be able to leave to go to work? And then you can still use it even if you're remote because you're still having to work just because you're not having to leave a house. So make sure, you're, and I don't know I'm not going to even try to begin to tell you what the max numbers are that you can, donate each year. But definitely look into your flex spending account because it's also, like I said, a benefit to you because it is pre-tax dollars. So you can, basically how it works is you take those pre-tax dollars that go into a FSA account, you go to your child goes to summer camp, your child goes to grandma, your child goes somewhere where you're having to pay some money for that, and then you get reimbursed. So you pay in advance, you go to your FSA account, and then they reimburse you. They can also pay directly to the provider. I always just do reimbursement, so you don't have to pay it in advance for those that you might not be able to. You can have them pay directly to the provider, so you're not coming out of pocket with that money. And then your HSA is usually more so for you, but it's also pre-tax dollars, and you can use it for insurance purposes, anything that's medical. And unlike your FSA only rolls over, I think, maybe 2 or 3 months into the new year, and then it expires. So if you don't use that money, you lose that money. So if you have an FSA, luckily, I don't know how, but my FSA that I have for 2021 did not expire in March 2022. I would have lost a couple $1,000s. So make sure that you are checking your FSA and using what is in your FSA before it expires. Your HSA is like it's like a savings account, right? So it doesn't expire. You can contribute whatever the maximum is for that year. Again, pre-tax dollars. And like she said, you can use it for your medical costs. You can use it basically just like an insurance card. You can use it when you go to Walgreens to pay for your prescriptions, to pay for pads. Anything that's like medical, you can use your HSA for, and it does not expire. So if you're not contributing to that, it does help you with pre-tax dollars. Contribute to it.
Yeah. And just thinking about like ways to save. So there's various things if you do have kids, because we were talking about a friend of yours. I think she wants to be a nurse. Their niece wants to be a nurse. Got a scholarship like $100,000 worth, but still has to chip in. And I was like, well, how much is tuition at this place? And I'm thinking, it ain't been that long since I've been out of school, but it has almost tuition at in-state schools has almost doubled in 10 years. And so one of the things, like the average in North Carolina is what, like $10,000 a year before room and board, because that's what really drives it up is room and board. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It is crazy.
One of the things, and Quick can certainly talk to the 529 a little bit more than me in terms of the limitations, but I know a lot of people do the 529 plans. Or I'll even see it's kind of really cute when people have kids. They'll be like, contribute to so-and-so's 529. Like, look at y'all being responsible. But I think they are limited to certain types of education. So if your kid doesn't go to school,
a trade school or something,
if your kid chooses like, I'm not really doing school, it's like, you're gonna be kind of
right.
But other ways you can, and I mean the interest rates are going up a little bit, but I am not a fan of most savings accounts. I just feel like I don't know, they're not making you any money. Like, it's just like I'm paying you to use my money. But like brokerage accounts, for example, I'm sure every company you could think of has some kind of brokerage account. And it is literally your account is being invested. And you could choose, just like stocks, if you want to be aggressive, if you want to be more moderate, if you want to be very safe. So, some people feel like, oh, if I'm putting my savings in this and the stock market is going up and down. Yeah, it is. It's kind of like your 401k, and really monitoring it and what's going on in your life. But your money is making money. And so I'm at the point where I'm still aggressive. I'm like, let's do it. Not a problem. Certainly, you could do that. And then maybe as your kid gets closer to, teenager, be like, let's dial this back because I ain't got time for that money not to be there in 5 years when I need it. So, you could certainly adjust just like people do with their 401k sometimes. Sometimes as people get older, they choose to be less aggressive and, it makes sense. So those are things to consider even outside the 529, if you are in the position to, save for your child's education. Again, some people debate. I don't have no dog in that fight, but some people debate about if it's your responsibility to send the baby to school or not, or whatever. If you are a parent who chooses to contribute to your child's education in whatever shape or form, those options don't have that limitation of it has to be a certain type of educational experience. So say they want, these kids take gap year. Let's say they want to, I don't know, go to Europe or take some class, whatever. You can use that money to set them up, or at least give them a leg up, or say like, look, I'm gonna give you this time, you need to figure it out. So yeah, those are just things I wanted to mention.
And then we also, if you go back, we did have an expert come on, an SME come on to talk about whole life insurance. So, you know, we are familiar with it. We have them, but we can't speak to it as well as she did. So please go back to that episode talking about, it was Emma Allen with State Farm. So go back to that episode and listen to it. But another way that it is a way to save for your child is to get a whole life insurance policy when they are really, really young.
Yeah.
And the way it was explained to us, when that whole life policy is paid in full, usually by the time the child is going to college, depending on how young you got it, and it doesn't cost a lot, but depending on how, like I say, young you got it, that policy can be paid in full by like 18, 22 maybe. And at that time, that child could start using that money that's in there inside of that policy. Now, it does go against the policy. Let's say, you know, that child can pull out $5,000 and put it towards whatever, tuition, whatever they wanted to put it towards. It does come out of the policy. So if that child pulled $5,000 out and they died, that is going to be $5,000 off of that policy whenever they pass away until it's paid back in, right? But you can use it like a savings account, pull it out, put it back in, even use it to pay on the payments for that policy. A lot of times people let their policies lapse and they don't realize, hey, I had money in that whole life policy I could have pulled out to make these payments so the policy wouldn't lapse.
Yeah.
But like I said, go back to that episode if you want to hear more about that and learn more about that. But it's also a very creative way and cheap way to start saving for your child, and for, you know, $50,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 depending on the policy that you have.
The really last two things I want to point out, because we talked about it. So the one thing, very quick, just something to consider. If you are thinking about having children and you're a woman and you're in your you know, in your career, you're in your bag, you're working for a company, really be strategic. Because unfortunately, having children can contribute to that income gap that we know exists between men and women in the same role. And really the way it happens is your merit bonus. Because what happens is you say, I'm pregnant, congratulations, you're out. You know, if you're lucky to have maternity leave, you know, that's not guaranteed here. You're out. And so, you know, with most companies, you have a mid-year review, an end-of-year review, and your bonus, if you have some kind of bonus, incentive plan, whatever, is based on a year of work and you meeting certain metrics and meeting certain goals, etc. So if you're out for a portion of the year, what happens is, not saying that you won't get one, but it's kind of like, well, you haven't been here to really meet those, and you haven't really been here to contribute in whatever way. And so I don't think they say it this way because it's probably illegal, but your bonus is a little less than it would have been had you been there the whole year. And so suddenly, you know, that, let's say you would have had $10,000 in a bonus and you got 5. Well, Bill got his full 10. So if you have 2-3 children, let's say you kept getting 5,000 instead of 10, you got 15 and Bill got 30. And so you look at your compensation year over year, that starts to create, because you think about it, when they do give you the little salary bumps, it's based on where you are. So even, it's just like you're never quite matched up where you should be. So it's just something to be, not saying don't have kids because of your bonus. I'm just saying really be strategic in the timing. If you're going to, like, you really got to, you know, if you're able to plan it that way, like really be strategic. And when you're out.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like a December baby. You can get back in there and be like, I was here.
You done had your year in November.
Don't play
come
me.
Back in February, first quarter, you back in there.
Come back in with that money.
Right.
So yeah, and then the second thing was like, okay, this child support. So look, again, I don't have a dog in this fight. But some people, some people feel like, I guess, at a certain age, it should be less money, or they shouldn't have to do as much, or, you know, various arguments for what is done with the money. I will say this. Everyone's situation is different. So I can't say that mama who needs that money to contribute to the rent, which technically takes care of your child, I can't fault her. I will say something to consider if you are in the position to do so with the child support at a certain age. If you're able to put a little bit of that to the side for your child, or make that like part of your child's like allowance, if kids still get allowances, it's just something to consider, again, if you're in the financial position to do so.
Right.
That's all I got to say.
Yeah. I'll leave it alone.
Look.
I mean, yeah. So for me, I mean, it took a while, you know, to be, like you said, to be able to be in the financial position to do so and have the liberty to do so. But my son's child support check now goes into his account. Okay. And I've made a deal with him because first he showed me that he was financially responsible and mature enough to be able to do that. He doesn't take his money and blow it on games. Now, I do allow him to get games. Yeah. But, you know, we've had budgeting conversations. We have those talks. So, you know, I knew he's not a child that's going to go and blow money because he sees those large, you know, those numbers. So I made a deal with him that whatever he is able to save by the time he graduates, I will match it. So it's an incentive for him to be able to save. Again, I'm now in that position to do so. Could I have done that when he was 5? Absolutely not. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So that there is that part. My issue with child support, especially with the numbers that we just crunched, when you're talking about $233,000 to raise a child, if you are able to be able to contribute to your child life financially, and it is not a burden on you to do so, then you should do that, right? I mean, great that the courts say to do it this much, but I can guarantee you, if the courts tell you based upon your income or her income that you should only do $400, and you know that you can do $700, you don't necessarily have to give it to her, but buy the shoes, buy the clothes, because I can guarantee you the liberties that you have and the freedom in not being that full-time custodian, that stuff costs. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like when you're talking about, again, like you said, some people do view it as, well, that child doesn't have to go to track. That child doesn't have to have a Spanish tutor. That, but don't you want your child to be in the best position? Like, don't you want them to be able to play sports or, you know, get those extra grades? If they struggling in school, don't you want them to be able to afford to have a tutor? And
I mean, you would think, but I mean, clearly, I know I would be a tiger mom, because even with my little aunt, you know, TT, Aunt Lee, whatever, like I'm very center of excellence, and they're not even my kids, and I'm very like, I don't understand. You have all the resources to be more than mediocre. We're not doing this.
So I think also a lot of the times that they'd be like, well, I'm paying $500, she paid $500, that's $1,000 for the kid. It doesn't really balance out like that all the time, because I think when you start doing those equal, if I paid it and she paid it and that's equal, where's the time? The time isn't equal. So why aren't you pushing that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot to be able to have a child into two sports. I'll just go with sports, swimming, and if she's in a tutor, you know what I'm saying? It's somebody has to drive that child. That's gas. Yeah. Somebody has to drive that child. And they've been working all day to get them to and from swimming lessons, to get them to and from their tutor, get them to and from ballet. Let's not talk about the traveling gymnastic parents. Yeah. God bless you. You know, so it's a lot of time components put in there that's outside of child support. So now, I'm not talking about the parents that, you know, y'all got issues and the mom won't let you see them, or, you know, dad or mom are using those kind of things as leverage to. I'm not talking about that. Let's talk about the people that really can be amicable and, you know, raising two-parent home. If you can give more to that child somehow, some way, then do, because it is very, very expensive to raise a child, and that is not just monetary. It is time. Time is one of your greatest currencies. Okay. And it is very expensive monetarily and time-wise to raise a child. And so, like you said, I mean, it just makes me think about knowing that, Like, I just don't understand people feeling like a person that chooses to only have one child or a person that chooses not to have any kids, like, is selfish. To me, it's more selfish to do that for somebody else and not want that child and then not be able to dedicate all that child needs. That's way more selfish in my book.
And then have a child that ends up on the couch because they know you didn't want them. But
hello, and do nothing. Like, I don't. Then, yeah. So.
Ooh, well, amen.
Okay.
Do with that what you will, guys. So, real quick, we have a Dear Diva segment. Questions, comments, concerns, shenanigans, divaadvice@gmail.com. That is DIVAADVICE@gmail.com. And it goes, Dear Divas, I've had trouble in the dating scene, girl. I prefer my age to be in my age range, but on all the apps, guys are either much younger or much older than me. I'm trying to be open because I do want to settle down and hopefully marry, but I'm concerned about being in totally different phases of life. Have you dated outside of your age range? If so, what was it like? And how old is too old or young? Signed, Anonymous.
Anonymous. I don't think I could answer the how old is under 18 is definitely too young and illegal, okay? So, I mean, unless y'all both minors. But otherwise, under 18 is definitely going to be too young answer. I don't know if there's too old. I mean, I just know people that are 20 years in difference and they seem happy and it's a loving relationship. Like, I don't feel like it's a parent-child. I mean, I've definitely seen it the opposite way, but I don't know that there is a too young, too old. I mean, of course, you always hear about the, young 30-something-year-old that got with the 70-something-year-old and she hoping he on his way out the door and gonna be in the wheel and the kids, like, you hear about those things. I don't think that's the typical situation, right? I really don't think when people are talking about should I date older or should I date younger, they're talking about that. At that point in time, to me, again, I generalize and say I feel like those are motives involved in those kind of situations. But it doesn't have to be. I know they always say it's for love. So I think as long as there's not some kind of authority figure, I'm thinking about these teacher-student kids, like even in college, I'm thinking about these teacher-student situations. I feel like the age really, I don't think it's just the number. I think the number matters, but I don't think that there can be a too old or too young. Okay. I do believe that people can mature at varying rates. I do, like you said, honestly believe that you can not be able to relate to a person because of the age differences when it comes to music and just interest.
Life.
Life. Like, some people just don't have the experiences. If I date a 24-year-old guy, I mean,
no.
We're going to have fun.
Yeah.
But that's usually going to be it. Most of them are not super mature and, are going to be looking for the same things that I'm going to be looking for. But, if I date a 60-year-old guy, I think it just depends on, like, I think that could probably be fine. I think too young could be more problemsome to me than too old.
So have you dated outside of your age range, and what was it like?
I'm trying to think if I've dated 10 years younger than me. Not 10, maybe 7. Maybe 7 years younger. And in that situation, it was the maturity level was there.
Okay.
Because that particular person had gone through a lot, so he had matured, right? He was caretaker, like he was way more mature than most people that age because of, like you said, he had lifed, right? I have dated older. I've dated 10 years older, and to me, it was done it twice. One, I didn't feel like it was any difference in maturity of me dating somebody in my same age, and the other one, I felt like it was. So I don't think that, again, in that situation, the age made a difference. It was just a matter of a person being ready, right? Yeah. Knowing what they wanted and being ready. I do feel like a lot of the times when you find single men that are much older, that they don't tend to want to get back in relationship. I feel like because they've been through the divorces, they've been through the marriages.
Yeah,
most of them have.
For like a
most of them a partner.
Yeah.
So if those are just conversations that you need to have to see where that person is on the same page. Because, like I said, if they've been divorced and their kids are grown and gone, they might be ready to just be the free person that they couldn't be in their 20s because they got married younger. Yeah. So that's just a conversation that you have to have. I'm not opposed to it either way. I really am not.
So I echo some of those sentiments. I think first of all, if you're curious and you're on the apps, I say go for it. Worst case, you had an awkward, couple drinks.
Right.
I will say, obviously, the 18, like, don't be out here being like a Roberta Kelly. Don't do that. But I will say, too old or too young for me, if you could be my daddy, I can't do it. Like,
I ain't saying.
I'm sorry. But you could be some people do that zaddy thing. I don't, because I don't want to think about my daddy in any context of when I'm with my man. I don't want to do that. I'm not doing it. But I feel like, yes, if you could be my father and I look at his age and you could be like my daddy's little brother, I don't know how I feel about that.
I gotta ask, y'all went to school together.
That's a little too old for me.
Okay, fair. I agree with that.
Too young, I personally, where I am now, probably would not go under 30. But again, that's because it is very rare, maturity-wise, and like you say, where you are in life, what you want in life. I don't know that someone under 30 would be on the same page of where I am and what my mindset is. I have not, I don't count like you've been on 1 or 2 dates as like dating. So I can't say I have seriously dated anyone much younger than me. Like, I've dated someone, but they were they were younger, but like we were born in the same year. So it's like, what was I doing? Holding my head up? That doesn't really count. I have dated older. I have dated, and again, I say this from experience, I have dated somebody who could have been my daddy. And it came into that factor of they had done the divorce. Their kids could be my younger siblings. And it was at a point of, I'm for the companionship. I don't know that I want to get married. I don't know. And so it was cool for a while, but then you think about me wanting the option. Again, even saying on this show is like, I'm still at maybe, but I want to be with someone where it's at least an option, even if I decide not to exercise it. So that didn't work for me. I've also dated about 15 years older than me. So you can't really be my daddy, but you got some years on me.
Okay,
I did. And it was a good experience. It was, for me, it was a good experience. I will say that generation, I felt very courted. I really enjoyed that. Yes. I really enjoyed like the chivalry that was just there, that kind of old school, kind of taking care of things, taking charge. Like that did it for me.
Now they do that now.
I wish, girl. So, but again, a downfall of that, sometimes when people are older, they do want to take control of things. They don't know how to, turn that off.
Especially if you're younger.
Yeah. So I would say like, give it a try. But again, the most important part is what Quick was saying in terms of making sure that you're on the same page in terms of like, what do you want? I mean, eventually you have those conversations, maybe not on the first date, but you have those conversations about what you want in life. Do you want to get married? Do you want to be on the Oprah Stedman and be partners or whatever? Do you want kids? So I think that's really what's most important over age, as long as they're over 21. So questions, comments, concerns, divaadvice@gmail.com. Quick, do you have any tips?
I do. So you were mentioning the 529 earlier, and I just wanted to go into that because, again, my son does have a 529, and I started that actually when he was, do I say in vitro? When he was, when
in
I was
utero?
In utero?
Yeah.
So
I was pregnant.
I was about to say knocked up. Sorry, Mama. I was pregnant with him. And I started his 529 then. I will say, at first I started in the state that I was in, and I moved to a different state after reading a lot of the small print. So with the 529, you do not have to get your 529 in your state of residency, but there can be tax benefits to getting it in your state. So make sure that you are looking through that fine print, because it definitely will go through detail, like she mentioned, about the penalties that will be used, and how it has to be used. If they don't go to college, can it be used for tuition? Can it be used for room and board? Can that room and board be considered an apartment? The doc is in there. You just got to go through it and pierce through it and decide if it's right for you. But I will say, it's never too soon, never too late to start saving for your child. Especially if you're, they're starting to talk about even wanting to go to college. $50 a week. It doesn't take a lot of money to start getting that ball rolling, right? You don't have to do that. I mean, college costs tens of thousands, but you don't have to get overwhelmed with that number. Just start small. The sooner you start, the better. Just start. Even if you right now you got a freshman in high school, you're thinking it's too late. Guess what? That's 4 years that you started saving that child wouldn't have had, right? It might be able to pay for books for the first year. Anything is better than
apartment,
right. Anything is better than nothing. So I would just say start saving.
All right, that is our episode. And as usual, follow us on all the things, Divas and Ducats. We are consistent across the platforms, Facebook and Instagram, www.divasandducats.com, divaadvice@gmail.com. And until then, in the meantime, in between time,
have a great attitude.
Bye.
Bye.